Welcome back, dear friend. Tonight, we will drift together across the endless river of time, traveling from the shadowed depths of humanity's earliest beginnings, all the way away to the bright, complex world we live in today. We will journey not in haste, but in calm wonder, pausing at each shore, touching each stone, and listening to the whispers of civilizations long gone and those still standing. This is the tale of us all, the story of humanity. Close your eyes, if you wish. Imagine a candle flickering nearby, its light golden and steady as soft shadows play upon the walls. Imagine that every breath you take is carrying you deeper into relaxation. With each moment, you feel more at ease, more ready to sink into the soothing embrace of history, not as dry facts, but as a dream, a living memory unfolding gently before you. Our story does not begin with kings or empires. It begins long before writing, long before cities. It begins in silence, in the slow awakening of humankind, when the first sparks of consciousness glowed within our ancestors. To understand the history of civilizations, we must first understand what it means to be human, to walk the earth, to look at the stars and wonder, to gather with others and form bonds, to shape tools, and eventually to shape entire worlds. And so, tonight, we embark together on the long road of history, moving through more than just events. We will glide through moods and meanings, through mysteries and discoveries, through the rise and fall of entire peoples. And as you listen, the steady rhythm of time may lull you, as though the ages themselves are rocking you gently to sleep. Let us begin, then, not with the noise of battle or the clamor of cities, but with stillness. Imagine a world untouched by civilization, a world of forests stretching endlessly, of deserts and mountains, of rivers flowing freely. Imagine a world before nations, before borders, before writing, when humankind was just beginning to find its voice. This is where our story begins. We will divide this journey into many chapters, each exploring a different age of civilization. But tonight, here in this first part, we prepare the mind, we set the tone, we open the door. Think of this introduction as the soft overture before a grand symphony, the whisper of waves before the storm of history. You may find your thoughts drifting as though carried by a gentle current. That is as it should be. Throughout this journey, we will move across 30 or more great landscapes of human history, from the hazy dawn of prehistoric life to the emergence of agriculture, the first great cities of Mesopotamia, the majesty of Egypt, the wisdom of Greece, the might of Rome, the quiet monasteries of medieval Europe, the golden courts of China, the temples of India, the empires of the Americas, the voyages of discovery, the revolutions of industry, and finally, the dazzling complexity of our modern digital age. Every step will be slow, careful, and rich with detail, so that you may listen, learn, and drift away peacefully. Let me tell you a secret, dear friend. History is not just a list of dates and names. It is not just kings and wars. History is a dream woven by countless lives, countless voices, some remembered, most forgotten. It is the way a mother sang to her child. in a stone hut 10,000 years ago. It is the way a farmer bent down to plant the first seed. It is the sound of a scribe's pen scratching softly on parchment in a dimly lit hall. It is the silence of pyramids under the moonlight, the laughter of children chasing each other in the streets of Athens, the pounding of drums in a Mayan festival, the chants of monks echoing through mountain temples. History is alive, and tonight it breathes in your ear, not to startle you, but to soothe you, to remind you that you too are part of this endless flow. So, as we prepare to set sail into the long corridors of civilization, feel yourself relax. With each breath, you are sinking more deeply into the story. With each heartbeat, the centuries pass more gently. There is no rush here. There is no hurry. We have all the time in the world, and more. The candle still flickers. The shadows still dance. You are safe here, in this moment, wrapped in the embrace of memory and story. Let your eyes grow heavy if they wish, or keep them half open, letting your imagination paint the pictures of long ago times. In the next part, we will step into the very beginning, the world of prehistory, when our ancestors wandered as hunters and gatherers, and the first whispers of a civilization began. But for now, let us rest in this gentle overture, this soft prelude to the grand story, because this story is not just about the past. It is about you, me, and everyone who has ever lived. It is the great thread that binds us all across time, across distance, across dreams. Dear friend, tonight, history becomes a lullaby. Prehistory, the dawn of humanity. Now that the introduction has set the stage, let us open the first great chapter of our journey. The story of humanity begins not in the noise of cities or the echo of empires, but in silence, in the slow unfolding of life across the vast landscapes of a world untouched by civilization. Imagine, for a moment, the earth as it was hundreds of thousands of years ago. Forests stretching endlessly, plains where herds of animals roamed in countless numbers, mountains rising sharp and timeless, rivers gliding quietly across valleys, deserts gleaming beneath the eternal sun. This was the stage upon which humanity first appeared, long before history was written, in the vast expanse we call prehistory. Our earliest ancestors were not yet us, not fully. They were part of a long chain of beings stretching back millions of years, beings who walked upright, who used tools, who slowly began to peer outward at the world with curiosity. One of the earliest of these ancestors was Homo habilis, known as the handyman. Over 2 million years ago, they shaped simple stone tools, chipping at rocks to create sharp edges. Picture them crouched by a riverbank, holding a stone in their hand, striking it carefully to form a tool sharp enough to cut meat or to crack open bones for the rich marrow within. Small as it seems, this act was monumental. It marked the beginning of human ingenuity, the first spark of the inventive mind that would one day build pyramids and spacecraft. From Homo habilis came others, most notably Homo erectus, taller, stronger, and more adventurous. They spread outward from Africa, across vast distances, walking into Asia, into Europe, becoming the first Great travelers of our kind, they tamed fire, one of the greatest discoveries in human history. Fire gave warmth in the cold night. It protected them from predators lurking in the dark. It cooked their food, making it easier to chew and digest, strengthening their bodies and giving them energy for the long journeys ahead. But fire was more than survival. Fire was light. Imagine the flickering glow in the darkness, the shadows it cast on stone walls, the way it seemed alive, mysterious, powerful. Around these fires, people gathered. They felt safe. They felt connected. They shared food. They shared silence. And perhaps, in those glowing circles, they shared the first stories. Fire gave humanity a center, a place of belonging, a place to dream. Much later, around 300,000 years ago, a new kind of human emerged in Africa. Homo sapiens, our own species, the wise ones. At first, we were not alone. Neanderthals lived in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, and other human relatives roamed in different parts of the world. For a time, many kinds of humans shared the earth, but gradually, Homo sapiens spread farther and farther, carrying with them something unique, the gift of imagination. They were not only hunters and gatherers, they were dreamers. They painted pictures, carved shapes, created symbols. They looked at the stars and wondered. For most of our existence, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. Imagine small bands of people, 20 or 30 together, moving slowly with the seasons, knowing the land deeply. They hunted deer and bison. They gathered fruits, nuts, roots, herbs, everything the earth offered. The rhythm of life was simple, but not easy. A hunt might bring abundance, or it might bring hunger. The days required constant attention, but also brought moments of beauty and connection. In these groups, everyone depended on each other. Knowledge was shared. Children learned by watching, listening, following the older ones. There were no cities, no rulers, no borders, only the land and the people, woven together by survival and trust. In the stillness of their lives, something remarkable emerged. Art. In caves deep beneath the earth, humans painted images with ochre and charcoal, with pigments made from the earth itself. Horses, bison, deer, and strange, mysterious symbols covered the walls. These paintings, some over 30,000 years old, are not simple decorations. They are a glimpse into the inner world of our ancestors. Imagine the flicker of torchlight revealing a painted herd of animals moving across the stone as though alive. Perhaps the paintings were part of rituals, calling upon luck in the hunt. Perhaps they were offerings to unseen spirits, or simply an expression of wonder. Whatever their purpose, they tell us one thing clearly. Humans were creators long before they were farmers, long before they built cities. They sought meaning, beauty, and connection beyond survival itself. As art flourished, so did community. Language slowly blossomed, though we cannot pinpoint when it began. With words, people could share not only warnings and commands, but memories, plans, dreams. A story could last beyond the moment. A lesson could be passed down from one generation to the next. Through language, culture was born, tribes formed, connecting families together. Trade emerged, simple at first, stones for shells, pigments for tools. Yet even in these exchanges, we see the roots of something profound. Cooperation across distances, a sense of connection stretching beyond one small group. Over time, humanity spread to every corner of the earth. They walked across the land bridge into the Americas. They sailed along coasts and rivers. They climbed into mountains and crossed deserts. Everywhere they went, they adapted, learned, changed, and grew. By the end of prehistory, humans had touched every continent except Antarctica. They were no longer just surviving, they were shaping the world around them, leaving marks in caves, carving tools, and planting the earliest seeds of culture. This long age of wandering, of firelight and painted walls, of hunters and gatherers, was the longest chapter in human existence, far longer than any empire, far longer than all the cities we know today. It was in this age that the foundations of humanity were laid. Creativity, community, imagination, resilience. Prehistory may seem distant, but it is the quiet soil from which all civilization grew. And as the last glacial age ended, as the ice retreated and the world grew warmer, something remarkable began. Humans discovered that they could not only gather food, but grow it. They could plant seeds, tend to them, and harvest in abundance. This single discovery, the birth of agriculture, would change everything. From it would come villages, then cities, then kingdoms, then empires. From it would come the world as we know it today. The agricultural revolution and the first villages as the ice of the last glacial age slowly retreated, revealing richer soils and calmer climates. Humanity found itself standing at the threshold of transformation. The world, once a wild expanse of hunter-gatherer pathways, fertile rivers, and roaming animals, began to offer an extraordinary possibility. Humans discovered that they could not only gather food, but grow it. The first seeds of agriculture were planted not only in the soil, but in the imagination of humankind. Imagine a small band of people moving seasonally across a river valley, observing which plants thrived where. They noticed patterns. Certain grasses produced nourishing seeds. Certain berries ripened at predictable times. Slowly, tentatively, they began to collect seeds and sow them deliberately near their camps. They learned to tend them, to protect them from the wind and wild animals, to water them when the sun scorched the earth. Over time, these small experiments yielded more food than foraging alone ever could. Humans realized that by working with nature, rather than only reacting to it, they could shape their environment in ways previously unimaginable. This era, beginning around 12,000 years ago, in regions such as the Fertile Crescent, a crescent-shaped area of the Middle East encompassing parts of modern-day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Jordan, marked the birth of agriculture. Wheat, barley, lentils, and peas became staples. In parallel, in the highlands of New Guinea, tubers like yams and sweet potatoes were cultivated, while rice fields began to appear in parts of East Asia. Maize, beans, and squash flourished in the Americas, shaping entirely new diets and ways of life. In Africa, Sorghum and millet emerged as essential crops. Every region had its own story, its own rhythm, its own discoveries. Yet the transformation shared a common thread. Humans no longer relied solely on the wild. They became cultivators, gardeners of the earth, and the world began to bend, in subtle but profound ways, to their will. With agriculture came the first permanent settlements. Imagine a cluster of mud brick huts beside a river, smoke curling lazily from small hearths, children playing under the warm sun, and adults tending the fields. Life slowed in some ways, but it also became more complex. Humans now had to think ahead, to plan for seasons, to store surplus grains, to protect their homes and their fields. This necessity for planning, for foresight, nurtured organization, hierarchy, and cooperation in ways that hunter-gatherer bands had never required. The first villages were small, often no more than a few dozen families, yet they were the foundation of every city that would ever rise in the future. One of the earliest and most remarkable of these villages was Catalhoyuk in modern-day Turkey, flourishing around 9,000 years ago. It was remarkable not only for its size, but for its organization. Houses were tightly packed, sharing walls, forming a honeycomb of domestic life. People moved across rooftops, entering homes from above, creating a network of interconnected spaces. In this village, humans began to decorate their walls with vivid paintings and carvings, honoring animals, fertility, and perhaps the unseen forces they sensed around them. Life here was intimate, communal, yet already marked by the emerging complexity of settled life. The agricultural revolution changed more than the way humans obtained food. It transformed their bodies, their social structures, and their ideas. With reliable access to grains, populations increased. Children survived at higher rates. Communities grew larger. New roles appeared. Some people tended fields, others cared for animals, others specialized in tool making or weaving. The simple division of labor gave rise to the first sense of interdependence beyond the immediate family. As villages multiplied and networks of exchange began, the earliest forms of trade emerged. Obsidian from one region might be carried dozens or hundreds of kilometers to craft tools elsewhere. Shells from distant coasts became ornaments, carrying stories of travel and connection. Humans were learning not only to cultivate the earth, but to cultivate relationships, networks, and ideas. Domestication extended beyond plants. Animals, too, became partners in this new way of life. Goats, sheep, cattle, and pigs were tamed, providing milk, meat, wool, and labor. Dogs, already companions to hunters, became indispensable allies, guarding flocks and protecting homes. The bond between humans and domesticated animals reshaped landscapes, diets, and societies. Humans were learning that control over nature was not only about tools or fire, but about creating enduring relationships with living beings. Religious and spiritual life began to change alongside these practical transformations. Early humans had always sensed forces beyond themselves, but as villages formed, rituals grew more elaborate. Shrines appeared, often at the center of settlements. Figurines of women emphasizing fertility, were common, perhaps reflecting the importance of abundance, growth, and the continuation of life. Burial practices grew more complex, with graves carefully arranged, sometimes accompanied by objects or offerings. These acts expressed reverence for life, death, and the unseen connections that bound human communities together. This age also witnessed early technological innovations that would shape the future. Stone tools became more specialized and refined. Sickles, grinding stones, and storage containers allowed humans to harvest, process, and preserve their crops. Pottery emerged, both functional and decorative, becoming vessels for sustenance, art, and ritual. Even in these small innovations, one can glimpse the slow, steady ingenuity that characterizes all human history. As villages spread, so too did the patterns of settlement and trade. In Mesopotamia, along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, early irrigation systems transformed the landscape. Water was channeled into fields, ensuring crops could grow even during dry seasons. The careful management of water required cooperation, planning, and organization. These early systems were the seeds of what would become the first cities and empires. Far to the east, along the Yellow River in China, rice cultivation and flood control began to shape complex societies. In Africa, along the Nile, seasonal flooding created fertile soil, encouraging permanent communities that would one day build the earliest pyramids. In the Americas, maize cultivation allowed dense populations to flourish in regions like Mesoamerica, setting the stage for later civilizations such as the Olmecs and Maya. The agricultural revolution also changed how humans thought about time. Life became cyclical, organized around seasons and planting cycles. Calendars began to emerge, as did observations of the moon, the sun, and the stars. Rituals and festivals often corresponded to planting or harvest, weaving together practical needs with spiritual understanding. Humans were not only shaping the land, they were shaping their understanding of the universe and their place within it. Through all of these changes, the human mind continued to expand. Storytelling, art, ritual, and practical knowledge intertwined, creating the first cultural traditions that could survive across generations. Education was informal, but vital. Children learned by observing elders, by practicing skills, and by participating in communal life. Knowledge became portable, and its careful transmission ensured that each generation could build on the discoveries of the last. Mesopotamia, whose name means the land between rivers, was a region of both abundance and challenge. The rivers, while providing fertile soil for agriculture, were unpredictable, flooding without warning or sometimes retreating too quickly. Early humans learned to harness these waters through irrigation, canals, and dikes, transforming the landscape into a garden capable of sustaining large populations. It was here that some of the first cities truly flourished, including Uruk, Ur, and Lagash. Uruk, often regarded as the world's first city, was a marvel of organization. Streets were carefully laid out, buildings constructed with mud bricks, and public spaces designated for markets, temples, and administrative functions. It was a city that combined practical necessity with the beginnings of culture. Around the great ziggurats, enormous step-like temples reaching toward the sky, priests conducted rituals, maintaining harmony between the divine and human realms. These ziggurats were both architectural and symbolic, reflecting humanity's desire to reach beyond itself, to touch the heavens, and to create order from the chaos of the natural world. Writing emerged in Mesopotamia as a necessity of organization, trade, and record keeping. Cuneiform, the system of wedge-shaped symbols pressed into clay tablets, allowed humans to preserve agreements, track grain supplies, and record the deeds of rulers. But writing soon evolved beyond utility, giving birth to literature, law, and philosophy. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest known stories, tells of friendship, mortality, and the quest for understanding, revealing that even at this early stage, humans were searching for meaning in a complex world. Through writing, memory transcended the fleeting moment, creating continuity across generations. Cities in Mesopotamia were not isolated. They were part of intricate networks of trade and diplomacy. Goods, ideas, and innovations flowed along rivers and overland routes, connecting communities separated by hundreds of miles. Artisans crafted pottery, textiles, and metal tools, while merchants exchanged grain, cloth, and luxury items. The complexity of these interactions demanded organization and governance, and soon city-states emerged, each ruled by kings whose authority was supported by priests, scribes, and administrators. Conflict was inevitable, yet so was cooperation. Alliances formed, treaties were signed, and the very notion of law began to crystallize as a guiding force for society. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the Nile River created a rhythm of life that was both predictable and sustaining. Every year, the river flooded gently, depositing rich silt on the surrounding plains. This natural cycle enabled the cultivation of wheat, barley, flax, and other essential crops, forming the backbone of Egyptian civilization. Unlike Mesopotamia, where unpredictable floods demanded constant human intervention, the Nile's reliability allowed Egypt to develop a strong sense of continuity, stability, and central authority. Egyptian society was organized around the pharaoh, considered both a divine ruler and a temporal leader. The pharaoh's authority was absolute, yet it was exercised with the guidance of a complex bureaucracy. Scribes recorded taxes, trade, and religious texts, while engineers and laborers built temples, palaces, and the monumental pyramids that would stand as enduring symbols of human ingenuity. Imagine the scale of these constructions. Thousands of workers moving enormous limestone blocks, planning with precision, and dedicating their efforts to honoring gods and kings. These monuments were more than tombs. They were statements of identity, belief, and permanence, connecting the living with the spiritual and the eternal. Religion in both Mesopotamia and Egypt shaped every aspect of life. In Mesopotamia, gods personified natural forces and human experiences. Each city had its patron deity, and temples served as centers not only of worship, but also of economic and administrative activity. In Egypt, the gods were closely linked to the cycles of nature, the sun, the Nile, fertility, and the afterlife. Temples were grand and elaborately decorated, serving as places for ceremonies, offerings, and the guidance of the community in moral and spiritual matters. Festivals, processions, and rituals created a rhythm to life that intertwined the practical with the transcendent. Trade and interaction were also central to Egyptian and Mesopotamian life. Egyptians imported cedar from Lebanon, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and gold from Nubia, creating a network that extended far beyond the Nile. Mesopotamian city-states, often competing yet interconnected, developed long-distance trade with Anatolia, the Indus Valley, and regions of the Persian Gulf. These exchanges spread technology, art, ideas, and religious concepts, knitting together a web of civilizations across the ancient world. Both regions also witnessed remarkable technological and intellectual advancements. In Mesopotamia, mathematics and astronomy developed alongside architecture and irrigation. The Sumerians created a calendar based on lunar cycles, laying the groundwork for precise timekeeping. In Egypt, medical knowledge, engineering, and art reached impressive heights, reflecting careful observation, experimentation, and creativity. In both civilizations, humans were learning to harness knowledge, not only for survival, but for expression, reflection, and mastery of their environment. The social fabric of these civilizations was complex and hierarchical. Elites held power and wealth. Artisans and traders provided essential goods and skills, and farmers labored to feed the population. Gender roles were defined but flexible, with women participating in religious, economic, and domestic spheres. Education and literacy were limited to a few, creating a valued class of scribes and scholars whose knowledge preserved and extended the achievements of their societies. Even in these early cities, humans were learning to balance individual skill with collective responsibility. The legacies of Mesopotamia and Egypt endure because of their profound contributions to human understanding. Writing, law, monumental architecture, complex governance, trade, and religion, all these elements laid the foundation for subsequent civilizations across the world. They demonstrated that humans could build lasting societies capable of creativity, order, and reflection on their place in the universe. As the sun rose and set over the Tigris, Euphrates, and Nile, the rhythms of life continued. Farmers tending fields, children playing near homes, priests performing rituals, scribes recording events. These civilizations, vibrant and intricate, were the culmination of thousands of years of human ingenuity, from the first sparks of consciousness to the careful tending of seeds in fertile soil. They remind us that human history is a tapestry woven from labor, imagination, and the persistent desire to understand and shape the world. By studying Mesopotamia and Egypt, we glimpse the profound capacity of humans to organize, create, and dream. The cities they built were more than shelters or administrative centers. They were living expressions of belief, culture, and the human spirit. The river valleys, the ziggurats, the pyramids, and the bustling streets speak to us across the millennia, a gentle whisper that civilization is born of curiosity, collaboration, and the quiet persistence of countless generations. The classical civilizations of Greece and Rome, as the rivers of Mesopotamia and the Nile, nurtured the growth of early civilizations. New societies arose along the Mediterranean, where landscapes of sun, sea, and mountains shaped human life in unique ways. These were the lands of Greece and later Rome, where ideas, art, philosophy, and governance flourished alongside military power and commerce. In these civilizations, the human mind reached remarkable heights, exploring questions of existence, beauty, justice, and the very nature of society itself. In Greece, civilization took root in city-states, known as polis, each a small kingdom of citizens bound together by shared language, culture, and identity. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and Thebes each developed distinct political systems, customs, and priorities. Imagine the bustling streets of Athens, lined with marble columns and sunlit marketplaces, citizens engaging in debate, merchants calling out their goods, philosophers walking slowly through public spaces, pondering the mysteries of life. In Sparta, by contrast, the focus was on discipline, martial skill, and communal strength, a society shaped to endure struggle and war. Greek civilization was marked by extraordinary intellectual and artistic achievements. Philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle explored the nature of knowledge, ethics, and the cosmos. Their ideas were not written in haste, but carefully developed through dialogue, reflection, and the observation of human life. Architecture rose to embody harmony and proportion. Temples dedicated to gods, such as Athena and Zeus, were carefully designed, columns rising in perfect symmetry, sculptures capturing movement and emotion in stone. Theater became a medium of reflection and entertainment, exploring tragedy and comedy, the human condition, and the tensions of fate and choice. Science, mathematics, and medicine advanced alongside art and philosophy, creating a civilization where curiosity and creativity intertwined with daily life. The Greeks were also explorers and traders. Ships carrying olive oil, wine, pottery, and ideas traversed the Mediterranean, connecting cities and islands in networks of commerce and culture. Colonies were established in far-off lands, spreading Greek influence and integrating distant communities into a shared world of thought and trade. Festivals, athletic contests such as the Olympic Games, and religious rituals punctuated life, providing rhythm, meaning, and communal cohesion. As Greek civilization matured, it became a foundation for a larger, even more ambitious society. Rome. The Romans inherited much from Greece, absorbing art, religion, philosophy, and technology. Yet they transformed these gifts into something uniquely their own. Rome began as a small city on the banks of the Tiber River, yet over centuries it expanded into an empire that spanned 3 continents, encompassing Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. Roman civilization was defined by organization, law, and infrastructure, Roads stretched across the empire, allowing armies, traders, and messengers to move efficiently. Aqueducts carried fresh water to cities. Baths and public spaces provided hygiene and social interaction, and amphitheaters showcased spectacles that entertained thousands. Roman law, codified and systematic, became a model for governance, establishing principles of justice, property, and civic responsibility that resonate even today. Rome was also a civilization of integration. Conquered peoples were often absorbed into the empire, bringing with them their customs, languages, and religions, creating a mosaic of cultures unified under Roman administration. Latin, the language of Rome, became the foundation for Romance languages, while Roman architecture, literature, and engineering influenced countless generations beyond the empire's fall. The daily life of Greeks and Romans was complex, nuanced, and vibrant. Citizens engaged in politics, debated philosophy, shopped in markets, and celebrated religious festivals. Artisans crafted goods from clay, bronze, and marble. Farmers worked the land, feeding cities that could number in the hundreds of thousands. Women, though often limited by societal norms, managed households, participated in religious rites, and in some cases influenced politics and culture. Slaves, drawn from conquest or debt, were central to the economy, yet they also carried skills, knowledge, and sometimes the spark of resistance that would ripple quietly through society. Both Greece and Rome grappled with challenges inherent to civilization: inequality, war, political upheaval, and the limits of governance. Greek city-states fought one another in rivalries that defined eras, while Rome faced internal conflicts between patricians and plebeians, ambitious generals, and the pressures of administering vast territories. Yet these challenges often drove innovation, debate, and adaptation, pushing these societies toward new forms of law, representation, and military organization. Greek and Roman religions were deeply woven into daily life. The Greeks worshipped a pantheon of gods whose personalities mirrored human traits, embodying both virtue and vice, influencing every aspect of existence. Rituals, sacrifices, and festivals connected citizens to the divine, creating a rhythm of devotion intertwined with civic life. Rome initially adopted similar gods, but expanded its pantheon as the empire grew, incorporating the deities from conquered lands, blending traditions, and using religion to strengthen social cohesion and political authority. The legacies of Greece and Rome endure because they combined imagination with practicality, beauty with order, and inquiry with action. Greek philosophy continues to inspire thought, mathematics, and ethics. Roman law and engineering influence governments, infrastructure, and cities worldwide. Their literature, drama, art, and architecture remain testaments to human creativity and ambition. In these civilizations, we see a pattern that repeats across history: humans gathering in communities, creating shared systems of knowledge, belief, and governance. They build not only for survival, but for memory, beauty, and continuity. They explore the limits of thought, the heights of imagination, and the challenges of organization, leaving behind traces of achievement that echo through time. The classical civilizations of Greece and Rome teach us that the human mind and spirit, when combined with collaboration and structure, can create wonders that endure far beyond the lives of individuals. Their cities, temples, roads, and writings form a bridge between the earliest villages of the agricultural revolution and the complex, interconnected world that would follow in Asia, Africa, and Europe as the Mediterranean sun rose and fell over marble columns, bustling forums, and quiet temples. Humans reflected on their place in the cosmos, experimented with governance, celebrated culture, and expanded the reach of human civilization. Greece and Rome are reminders that civilization is not only about survival or conquest, it is about understanding, creating, and leaving a legacy that invites future generations to build, imagine, and dream. The classical civilizations of India and China, while the Mediterranean world was building the foundations of philosophy, law, and empire, another part of the world was experiencing its own extraordinary blossoming of human civilization. Along the rivers of South Asia and East Asia, societies emerged that would leave legacies equally profound, shaping culture, thought, governance, and spirituality in ways that resonate to this day. In the Indian subcontinent, the civilization that developed along the Indus River Valley, often referred to as the Harappan civilization, laid the groundwork for one of the most enduring cultural traditions in human history. Cities such as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were marvels of urban planning. Streets were arranged in grids, homes featured sophisticated drainage systems, and large public baths suggest the importance of hygiene and communal life. People traded across vast distances, exchanging precious stones, metals, and crafted goods with regions as far away as Mesopotamia. Even though much about the Harappan script remains undeciphered, we can sense a society deeply concerned with organization, order, and connectivity. Following the decline of the Harappan cities, the Vedic period saw the composition of sacred texts known as the Vedas, which would shape religion, philosophy, and social structures for millennia. The Vedic tradition explored the mysteries of existence, the nature of the divine, and the rhythms of life and the cosmos. Rituals, hymns, and philosophical reflection became central to Indian culture, fostering a sense of purpose and connection that transcended the material world. These ideas gave rise to enduring spiritual traditions, including Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, each emphasizing ethics, meditation, and the pursuit of knowledge. In parallel, ancient China was emerging along the fertile plains of the Yellow River, or Huanghe. Early dynasties, such as the Xia and Shang, developed systems of governance, writing, and ritual that would define Chinese civilization for centuries. The Shang dynasty, in particular, produced some of the earliest known Chinese writing on oracle bones, animal bones, and turtle shells, inscribed with symbols used for divination. These inscriptions were not merely practical, they reflected a worldview in which the divine and the earthly were intertwined, where human action and cosmic forces influenced one another. Chinese civilization valued harmony, both with nature and within society. Confucian philosophy, which would arise centuries later, emphasized order, moral integrity, respect for family, and the responsibilities of rulers and citizens. Taoist thought, emerging concurrently, celebrated balance, the rhythms of nature, and the subtle, flowing patterns that govern all life. These ideas were not abstract. They informed agriculture, city planning, governance, medicine, and daily life, guiding humans in how to live in accordance with both the world and themselves. The development of technology in India and China was equally remarkable. In India, sophisticated metallurgy, mathematics, and astronomy were pursued, including the early use of zero as a conceptual tool and precise calculations of celestial movements. These achievements enabled innovations in architecture, urban planning, and navigation. In China, technological ingenuity manifested in bronze casting, early iron tools, silk production, and intricate irrigation systems. Canals, dikes, and reservoirs shaped the landscape, allowing large populations to thrive, while inventions such as paper, the compass, and eventually gunpowder would later transform not only China, but the world. Trade and cultural exchange connected these classical civilizations to their neighbors. In India, overland routes and coastal paths facilitated trade with Central Asia, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Spices, textiles, and precious stones moved along these routes, spreading culture, religion, and technology. China, too, developed extensive networks that would eventually become part of the Silk Road, linking East and West and creating a conduit for goods, ideas, and philosophies across continents. These interactions enriched societies, creating a flow of knowledge and influence that transcended borders. Both India and China demonstrated how complex civilizations could integrate governance, culture, and spirituality. Cities became centers of administration, commerce, and learning. Palaces, temples, and observatories embodied the values, beliefs, and ingenuity of these civilizations. Education and scholarship were highly valued, ensuring that knowledge of law, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and art could be passed to future generations. Social organization was intricate, balancing the needs of rulers, scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants, all while maintaining rituals and traditions that preserved cultural identity. The spiritual and philosophical richness of these civilizations is particularly striking. In India, the questions explored in the Upanishads and later Buddhist texts addressed the nature of self, suffering, and liberation, offering insights that continue to guide millions today. In China, Confucian, Taoist, and later legalist thought shaped governance, ethics, and personal conduct, emphasizing harmony, responsibility, and the alignment of human action with cosmic order. In both regions, spirituality was not separate from daily life. It infused agriculture, commerce, education, and governance, providing a coherent worldview that helped societies endure and flourish. The legacies of classical India and China extended far beyond their own borders and centuries. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, Philosophy, literature, art, and political thought from these civilizations became foundations for subsequent societies in Asia and beyond. They illustrate how humans can create enduring systems of knowledge and culture, harmonizing practical innovation with intellectual and spiritual exploration. As rivers flowed, fields ripened, and cities bustled, humans in India and China were both grounded in the natural rhythms of their environment and reaching toward abstraction, reflection, and understanding. They developed systems that balanced survival, governance, spirituality, and creativity, showing that civilization is not merely about power or conquest, but about cultivating knowledge, wisdom, and beauty over generations. The classical civilizations of India and China remind us that humanity's story is not linear nor confined to one region. Across continents, humans were discovering similar truths that organization, knowledge, belief, and creativity are interwoven, that cities, temples, and schools are not just structures, but vessels of culture, that understanding the self, the community, and the cosmos is central to human life. These civilizations were living laboratories of thought, innovation, and artistry, leaving legacies that continue to inspire and guide us. In reflecting on these civilizations, one sees a continuum of human effort, from the hunter-gatherers tending seeds along riverbanks to the philosophers, engineers, and rulers who shaped cities, networks, and ideas. India and China, alongside Greece and Rome, Mesopotamia, and Egypt, exemplify how human societies can achieve complexity, beauty, and enduring impact, illuminating the path of civilization as it moves through time. The rise and expansion of empires in the Middle East, Persia, and the Mediterranean, as the classical civilizations of Greece, Rome, India, and China were flourishing. The Middle East witnessed the emergence of empires whose ambition, organization, and vision would reshape the ancient world. These empires, vast in scale and powerful in influence, unified diverse peoples, integrated trade networks, and developed political and cultural systems that would reverberate across continents and centuries. The story begins with the rise of the Persian Empire under the leadership of Cyrus the Great in the 6th century BCE. Cyrus, a leader of remarkable vision and strategy, unified the disparate tribes of Persia and began a process of conquest that would create one of the largest empires the world had yet seen. His administration was notable not only for military success, but for governance that respected local customs and religions. Cities and regions retained some autonomy while contributing to a larger imperial framework, demonstrating an early form of centralized administration combined with cultural tolerance. The Persian Empire stretched from the Indus Valley in the east to the shores of the Aegean Sea in the west, encompassing a staggering diversity of landscapes, languages, and peoples. The construction of the Royal Road, a network of carefully maintained routes, enabled rapid communication, the movement of armies, and the flow of trade. Along these roads, merchants, messengers, and travelers carried not only goods but ideas, connecting communities across vast distances. The empire's Standardized systems of weights, measures, and taxation facilitated commerce and governance, creating cohesion in an otherwise sprawling domain. Religion and culture played significant roles in the Persian Empire. Zoroastrianism, one of the earliest monotheistic religions, emphasized the duality of good and evil, the importance of moral choice, and the ultimate triumph of order over chaos. Fire temples, ritual practices, and sacred texts fostered a sense of unity and ethical purpose, influencing both governance and individual behavior. The integration of religious observance with imperial administration created a framework in which spirituality and political life reinforced each other, providing stability and legitimacy. Meanwhile, the Mediterranean continued to be a theater of expansion, diplomacy, and conflict. The Greek city-states, despite their achievements in philosophy, art, and science, faced the necessity of survival and dominance in a competitive landscape. The Persian Wars, fought in the early 5th century BCE, tested the resolve of these states. Cities like Athens and Sparta demonstrated courage, strategy, and resilience, repelling Persian forces and asserting the independence of the Greek world. These conflicts, though violent, became defining moments that shaped political identity, collective memory, and cultural pride. Following the classical Greek period, Macedonia, under Philip II, and later his son, Alexander the Great, transformed the Mediterranean and Near Eastern world through unprecedented conquest. Alexander's campaigns stretched from Greece through Egypt, across Persia, and into the Indian subcontinent. The cities he founded, such as Alexandria in Egypt, became hubs of learning, trade, and cultural exchange. Hellenistic culture, blending Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and other influences, spread across these vast territories, creating a rich tapestry of art, philosophy, science, and religion. This fusion of cultures illustrated humanity's capacity for adaptation, synthesis, and intellectual flourishing. Simultaneously, Rome was emerging as a formidable power in the Mediterranean, transitioning from a city-state to a republic and eventually to an empire. The Romans combined military strategy, administrative skill, and cultural assimilation to expand their influence across Europe, North Africa, and the Near East. Roads, aqueducts, and ports integrated vast territories, enabling the efficient movement of armies, trade, and information. Roman law and governance created a framework of stability and predictability, uniting diverse peoples under a common legal and political structure, while allowing local customs to endure. Trade networks during this period were extensive. Persian merchants traversed the Royal Road. Greek and Hellenistic traders moved along Mediterranean coasts, and Roman commerce connected distant provinces to the heart of the empire. Goods such as olive oil, wine, grains, textiles, metals, and spices flowed freely, while ideas, artistic styles, religious beliefs, and scientific knowledge traveled alongside them. These networks were not only economic, but intellectual and cultural, fostering a level of interconnectedness that anticipated the globalized world centuries later. Conflict and diplomacy were constant companions to expansion. Empires faced internal rebellions, border disputes, and the challenge of integrating diverse populations. Military innovation, ranging from cavalry and phalanxes in Persia to Roman legions, with disciplined formations and advanced engineering, played a decisive role in maintaining and extending control. Yet diplomacy, alliances, and strategic marriages were equally critical, demonstrating that power was not only about force, but about negotiation, adaptation, and foresight. Religious and philosophical thought continued to flourish alongside political expansion. In the Mediterranean, philosophical schools such as Stoicism and Epicureanism explored ethics, happiness, and the nature of the cosmos, offering guidance to individuals navigating the uncertainties of empire. In Persia, Zoroastrian ethics informed governance and personal conduct. In the Hellenistic world, synthesis of Greek, Egyptian, and Eastern thought created new perspectives on life, divinity, and human potential. Across these empires, humans were not only building cities and armies, they were also cultivating wisdom, reflection, and the pursuit of understanding. The legacies of these empires endure because they demonstrated both the possibilities and challenges of large-scale human organization. They show that governance, infrastructure, culture, and spirituality are intertwined, and that the capacity to integrate diverse peoples, ideas, and environments is a hallmark of successful civilization. Roads, cities, monumental architecture, legal codes, and centers of learning are tangible traces of ambition, ingenuity, and foresight. By the end of this period, humanity had experienced a profound transformation from small villages in the Fertile Crescent to sprawling empires spanning continents. Humans had learned to organize, govern, and connect in ways that had never been seen before. The Middle East, Persia, and the Mediterranean were not only theaters of conquest, but crucibles of culture, philosophy, law, and technology. They illustrate the remarkable capacity of humans to imagine a future beyond immediate survival, to coordinate on unprecedented scales, and to leave legacies that endure far beyond their own lifetimes. As the sun rose and set over rivers, deserts, and seas, humans in these empires cultivated knowledge, power, and beauty. They built roads that linked civilizations, temples that honored gods, and cities that bustled with commerce, debate, and creativity. In doing so, they contributed enduring chapters to the story of human civilization, chapters that resonate through the ages, guiding future generations to imagine, create, and build ever more intricate societies. The medieval world, Europe, Asia, and the Islamic Golden Age, as the ancient empires of Persia, Rome, Greece, India, and China slowly gave way to new orders. Humanity entered a period often called the medieval era. Across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, societies transformed, adapted, and flourished in ways that were subtle, complex, and deeply creative. Life in this era was shaped by the interplay of faith, trade, innovation, and the human drive to understand the world and one's place within it. In Europe, the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century CE marked a shift from centralized imperial control to a patchwork of kingdoms and territories. The familiar rhythm of Roman administration gave way to local lords, castles, and feudal structures, where land was exchanged for loyalty and service. Life, for most people, was agrarian, rooted in villages and manors, where farmers worked the soil under the guidance of nobles. Daily existence was intertwined with the cycles of nature, planting in spring, tending in summer, harvesting in autumn, and preparing for the winter months. Communities were small, yet interconnected, sustained by shared labor, local markets, and the enduring presence of the church. Christianity became a defining force in medieval Europe, influencing law, education, and daily life. Monasteries served as centers of learning, preserving classical texts, copying manuscripts, and educating monks and, occasionally, members of the laity. Churches, cathedrals, and chapels punctuated the landscape, not only as places of worship, but as expressions of artistry, devotion, and the human aspiration to connect with the divine. Gothic cathedrals, with their soaring spires and intricate stained glass, reflected a culture that sought to lift the spirit upward, to embody faith in stone, light, and space. Meanwhile, in Asia, China experienced periods of remarkable stability, innovation, and expansion during the Tang and Song dynasties. The Tang dynasty fostered a cosmopolitan culture, with trade along the Silk Road bringing goods, ideas, and religions from as far as Persia and India. Art, poetry, and literature flourished, capturing the subtle beauty of nature, human emotion, and the rhythms of urban life. The Song dynasty later became a hub of technological and scientific innovation. Paper money emerged, sophisticated printing techniques spread knowledge, and advances in agriculture, navigation, and engineering transformed society. Cities became centers of commerce and culture, bustling with markets, workshops, and scholarly pursuits. In the Islamic world, the period known as the Islamic Golden Age, roughly spanning the 8th to the 14th centuries, witnessed extraordinary intellectual, artistic, and scientific achievements. From the cities of Baghdad, Damascus, Cordoba, and Cairo, scholars collected, translated, and expanded upon the knowledge of Greece, Rome, Persia, India, and China. Mathematics flourished, with algebra and algorithms refined and transmitted across continents. Medicine advanced with hospitals, detailed medical texts, and innovations in surgery. Astronomy, chemistry, and engineering reached remarkable sophistication, guided by observation, experimentation, and the desire to understand the natural world. The Islamic Golden Age was not only a period of scientific progress, but also of cultural and artistic expression. Architecture, from intricate mosques to grand palaces, combined geometry, symmetry, and ornamentation to reflect both faith and aesthetic sophistication. Literature and philosophy flourished, blending ideas from multiple traditions into new forms of thought. Poetry, music, and storytelling enriched daily life, creating a shared sense of identity and intellectual vitality across diverse regions. Trade networks expanded dramatically during this period, connecting Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Merchants traveled along the Silk Road, across the Indian Ocean, and through Mediterranean ports, exchanging spices, silk, gold, and knowledge. Ideas flowed alongside goods, spreading religion, philosophy, scientific discoveries, and artistic styles. Cities along these routes became hubs of cosmopolitan life, where people of different cultures, languages, and faiths interacted, negotiated, and learned from one another. Conflict and diplomacy were ever present. Europe experienced the Crusades, a series of religious and military campaigns that linked, yet also divided, Christian and Muslim worlds. Empires and kingdoms in Asia faced challenges from nomadic invasions, internal rebellion, and regional competition. Yet these conflicts often spurred innovation, adaptation, and cultural exchange, demonstrating humanity's ability to transform challenges into opportunities for growth and understanding. The medieval world was also marked by remarkable social, technological, and intellectual developments. Agricultural innovations, including the heavy plow, three-field rotation, and improved irrigation, increased productivity and supported population growth. Guilds and professional organizations arose in towns, regulating crafts, promoting training, and creating networks of expertise. Education expanded, with universities emerging in Europe, fostering inquiry in law, theology, medicine, and philosophy. Scholars in the Islamic world, China, and India continued to advance knowledge, ensuring that the flame of human curiosity and discovery remained bright across continents. Religious, philosophical, and cultural life provided coherence and meaning. In Europe, monasteries and cathedrals anchored communities spiritually and socially. In the Islamic world, faith intertwined with scholarship, art, and governance. In Asia, Confucian, Taoist, and Buddhist traditions informed ethics, social organization, and intellectual life. Across regions, humans sought to harmonize practical survival with moral, spiritual, and aesthetic pursuits, cultivating civilizations that were resilient, adaptive, and rich in imagination. The medieval period, though often framed as an era of turbulence, was also an era of profound continuity and creativity. Cities, trade routes, agricultural techniques, philosophical schools, and artistic expressions laid the foundation for the Renaissance, the age of exploration, and the modern world. Populations were increasingly interconnected. Knowledge circulated widely, and cultures blended in ways that would shape global history for centuries to come. In reflecting on this era, one sees a pattern emerging across civilizations, humans navigating the tension between tradition and innovation, survival and curiosity, faith and reason. Europe, Asia, and the Islamic world each contributed unique insights, technologies, and cultural treasures, yet all share a common thread: the persistent human drive to understand, organize, and create. As the sun set over medieval villages, bustling cities, and caravan routes stretching across deserts and mountains, humans cultivated knowledge, built enduring institutions, and nurtured the arts. They lived with the rhythms of the natural world while imagining a future beyond immediate survival, leaving legacies that continue to inform, inspire, and illuminate the long story of human civilization, the Renaissance and the age of exploration. As the medieval world gradually shifted, a profound awakening began to ripple across Europe. Known as the Renaissance, this period, spanning roughly the 14th to 17th centuries, was a rebirth of human curiosity, creativity, and inquiry. It was a time when art, science, philosophy, and exploration intertwined, encouraging humans to look beyond tradition, question assumptions, and imagine the world in bold new ways. The Renaissance began in Italy, in cities like Florence, Venice, and Rome, where wealthy patrons, scholars, and artists cultivated an environment of intellectual and aesthetic flourishing. Imagine the streets of Florence, alive with the scent of freshly ground pigments, the chatter of artisans, and the rustle of parchment in scholarly workshops. In grand studios, artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael experimented with perspective, anatomy, and light, producing works that captured the beauty, complexity, and dynamism of the human experience. Their creations were not mere decoration, they were investigations into proportion, movement, and the nature of humanity itself. Humanism became a defining philosophical current of the Renaissance. Scholars studied classical texts from Greece and Rome, not only to preserve them, but to reinterpret them in light of contemporary understanding. Literature, philosophy, and political thought flourished as humans reflected on ethics, governance, and the potential of the individual. Thinkers like Erasmus, Machiavelli, and Petrarch explored the interplay between morality, power, and civic life, laying the foundations for modern humanistic thought. Education was transformed, emphasizing rhetoric, history, mathematics, and philosophy, cultivating minds capable of both creativity and reason. Science, too, experienced a revolutionary surge. Astronomers such as Copernicus and Galileo challenged centuries-old assumptions about the cosmos, proposing that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but a planet among many. Anatomists carefully dissected the human body, revealing the intricate mechanisms that allowed life to function. Engineers and inventors devised machines, instruments, and techniques that expanded the boundaries of human capability. Observation, experimentation, and documentation became essential tools for understanding the natural world, marking a decisive shift from reliance on tradition to reliance on evidence and reasoning. The Renaissance was not confined to Europe's intellectual elite. Cities expanded, commerce grew, and the printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg, revolutionized the dissemination of knowledge. Books, pamphlets, and maps became more widely available, enabling ideas to travel farther and faster than ever before. Literacy increased, and with it, access to education and participation in civic life. Knowledge was no longer the exclusive domain of monasteries or scholars. It began to permeate society, inspiring curiosity and imagination on an unprecedented scale. Parallel to this cultural awakening, the age of exploration transformed humanity's understanding of the world. Motivated by trade, curiosity, and ambition, European explorers ventured across oceans and continents, mapping coastlines, discovering new lands, and establishing connections with distant peoples. Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic, reaching the Americas. Vasco da Gama navigated around Africa to India. Ferdinand Magellan's expedition circumnavigated the globe, revealing the planet's vast interconnectedness. These journeys reshaped global trade, migration, and cultural exchange, creating networks that spanned continents and oceans. Exploration was fueled by advances in navigation and maritime technology. Compasses, astrolabes, and improved maps allowed sailors to traverse previously uncharted waters with greater precision. Ships were designed for long voyages, capable of carrying goods, crews, and knowledge across vast distances. Ports became centers of commerce and cultural exchange, bringing together merchants, scholars, and travelers from diverse regions. The world, once perceived as a collection of isolated lands and peoples, began to appear as a vast, interconnected system. Trade and empire expanded alongside exploration. Europeans established colonies in the Americas, Asia, and Africa, extracting resources, cultivating crops, and integrating local economies into global networks. Spices, sugar, silver, textiles, and other commodities moved along newly established trade routes, linking distant continents in ways that had never been seen before. These exchanges were not only economic, but cultural, spreading languages, religions, technologies, and ideas. Humanity became aware of both the diversity and the interdependence of societies across the globe. The Renaissance and the Age of Exploration also brought profound social and intellectual challenges. Encounters with new peoples and lands raised questions about morality, governance, and human rights. Scientific discoveries challenged traditional beliefs, often provoking conflict with established authorities. Yet these tensions also inspired debate, reflection, and further inquiry, demonstrating that growth often arises from the dynamic interplay of challenge, curiosity, and imagination. Art, science, exploration, and philosophy during this period shared a common theme: the assertion of human potential. Humans were no longer passive observers of the world. They became active participants in its creation, discovery, and understanding. They sought to balance beauty with function, faith with reason, curiosity with discipline, imagination with evidence. The Renaissance and the Age of Exploration represent humanity stepping boldly into the broader world, embracing both its wonders and its mysteries. As cities flourished, ships crossed oceans, and scholars wrote, humanity was weaving together the threads of knowledge, creativity, and exploration into a tapestry that spanned continents. The achievements of this period would lay the foundations for the modern era, influencing science, art, politics, and global interconnectedness for centuries to come. The Renaissance and the Age of Exploration remind us that civilization is not merely the accumulation of wealth or power, but the cultivation of knowledge, imagination, and connection. By observing, questioning, creating, and exploring, humans expanded the horizons of what was possible, leaving a legacy that continues to guide our understanding of ourselves and the world. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment as the Renaissance illuminated the possibilities of human creativity, inquiry, and exploration. The next great chapter in human civilization emerged, a period marked by reason, observation, and the systematic pursuit of knowledge. This era, spanning roughly the 16th to the 18th centuries, is known as the Scientific Revolution and the Enlightenment. It was a time when humans began to question inherited assumptions, to probe the natural world with precision, and to envision societies organized by reason and principles rather than tradition alone. The scientific revolution was a profound transformation in how humans understood nature and the universe. Figures such as Nicholas Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, and Isaac Newton challenged centuries old beliefs about the cosmos. Copernicus proposed that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but one planet among many orbiting the Sun, a concept that fundamentally altered human perception of existence. Galileo's observations with the telescope revealed moons orbiting Jupiter, mountains on the moon, and the phases of Venus, further dismantling long-held geocentric views. Kepler uncovered the mathematical laws of planetary motion, while Newton synthesized the principles of gravity, motion, and universal law. Together, these thinkers laid the foundations of modern science, demonstrating the power of observation, measurement, and mathematical reasoning. The scientific revolution extended beyond astronomy. Anatomists, like Andreas Vesalius, dissected the human body to reveal its intricate structure, challenging traditional medical texts. Robert Boyle and Antoine Lavoisier explored the properties of matter, gases, and chemical reactions, laying the groundwork for modern chemistry. In physics, machines, instruments, and methods of experimentation proliferated, emphasizing empirical evidence over speculation. Humanity learned to measure, record, and test with rigor, transforming curiosity into knowledge that could be communicated, replicated, and expanded. Parallel to scientific inquiry, the Enlightenment emerged as a philosophical and cultural movement that applied reason, logic, and observation to human society. Thinkers such as John Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau explored the nature of governance, liberty, justice, and human rights. Locke's theories of natural rights and government by consent challenged monarchic absolutism. Montesquieu analyzed the separation of powers, laying the intellectual groundwork for modern democratic systems. Rousseau emphasized the social contract, envisioning societies where authority is derived from collective agreement and moral responsibility. These ideas questioned entrenched hierarchies, encouraged debate, and inspired revolutions that reshaped nations and societies. The Enlightenment was not confined to political thought. Philosophers, artists, and writers explored ethics, education, and culture, emphasizing the cultivation of reason, critical thinking, and human potential. Encyclopedists like Denis Diderot and Jean-Laurent d'Alembert compiled vast repositories of knowledge, making information accessible to a growing literate public. Salons and coffee houses became spaces of intellectual exchange, where ideas flowed freely across social classes, fostering collaboration, critique, and creativity. Literature, music, and art reflected the ideals of clarity, proportion, and rational beauty, illustrating that human expression and reason could coexist harmoniously. Science and philosophy during this period were deeply intertwined with practical advances. Navigation, engineering, medicine, and agriculture benefited from systematic study and experimentation. Observatories charted the stars, instruments measured temperature, pressure, and chemical properties, and botanical gardens, anatomical theaters, and scientific societies became centers of discovery. These innovations transformed daily life, commerce, industry, and education, demonstrating that reason and observation could have tangible, meaningful effects on society. Trade, communication, and global awareness expanded alongside intellectual progress. European powers explored, mapped, and connected continents, integrating distant economies through commerce in spices, textiles, metals, and knowledge. Information traveled not only through printed texts, but also via letters, lectures, and correspondence between scholars across Europe and beyond. The scientific revolution and Enlightenment nurtured a worldview in which observation, logic, and shared inquiry were valued, encouraging collaboration across cultures and regions. Yet these transformations were not without tension. Challenges to traditional religious and political authority provoked conflict as new ideas unsettled established hierarchies. Skepticism, debate, and revolutionary thinking tested society's ability to adapt. Nevertheless, these tensions fostered progress, cultivating systems of law, education, and governance increasingly informed by reason, evidence, and ethics rather than inherited privilege alone. The legacies of this period are profound. Modern science, technology, education, and democratic principles trace their roots to the meticulous observations, daring experiments, and reflective philosophies of the scientific revolution and Enlightenment. Humanity learned not only to understand the natural world, but to interrogate assumptions, to seek evidence, and to envision societies guided by rational principles. These centuries reshaped human thought, society, and global interconnectedness, setting the stage for industrialization, modern democracy, and the technological world we inhabit today. As candles flickered in study chambers, telescopes pointed to distant stars, and pens recorded thoughts on paper, humans of this era were both observers and architects of their world. They cultivated knowledge, debated ideas, and envisioned possibilities that extended far beyond their own lifetimes. The scientific revolution and Enlightenment remind us that civilization advances not only through conquest or survival, but through curiosity, reflection, and the disciplined pursuit of understanding. The period is a testament to the human capacity for reason, creativity, and the persistent quest to illuminate the unknown. Across Europe, Asia, and connected continents, ideas traveled, experiments were conducted, and debates flourished. Humanity was learning to think systematically, question boldly, and imagine futures informed by both observation and moral reflection. In the quiet of study halls, in the laboratories of scholars, and across the lecture halls and salons of enlightened cities, the seeds of modern civilization were taking root. Knowledge was cataloged, ideas refined, and principles articulated, foundations upon which future generations would build, explore, and innovate. The scientific revolution and enlightenment are enduring reminders that human progress is propelled by the careful balance of curiosity, evidence, and imagination, guiding civilization ever forward. The Industrial Revolution and the transformation of society as the Enlightenment spread reason, inquiry, and curiosity across Europe. Humanity began to harness not only knowledge, but also the power of the natural world on a scale previously unimaginable. This era, known as the Industrial Revolution, which began in the late 18th century, transformed societies from agrarian, rural communities into bustling, mechanized, and interconnected urban centers. The rhythms of life, work, and production shifted profoundly, leaving an enduring imprint on human civilization. The Industrial Revolution began in Britain, where a combination of natural resources, political stability, financial systems, and colonial networks created fertile ground for innovation. Coal and iron, abundant and accessible, fueled the engines of change. Inventors and engineers developed machinery to spin and weave textiles, pump water, and eventually drive locomotives and steamships. Factories, powered by steam, emerged as hubs of production, concentrating labor, machinery, and raw materials under one roof. The scale of output and speed of production transformed economies, creating wealth, opportunity, and new challenges in equal measure. Urbanization accelerated rapidly as people moved from rural villages to cities in search of work. Towns such as Manchester, Birmingham, and Glasgow expanded dramatically, with streets lined by workshops, chimneys, and marketplaces. Life in these growing urban centers was both vibrant and precarious. New technologies and commerce created prosperity, yet dense populations, poor sanitation, and long work hours presented challenges. Families adapted to new rhythms, children and adults alike participating in the labor that sustained industrial economies. Transportation underwent a revolution. The development of steam engines enabled locomotives to cross vast distances, linking cities, regions, and nations with unprecedented speed. Canals and later railways facilitated the movement of goods, raw materials, and people, knitting together previously isolated regions into integrated economic networks. Ports and shipping industries expanded, connecting industrial centers to global markets. Humanity began to perceive the world not as isolated lands, but as an interconnected web of production, commerce, and culture. Industrialization was accompanied by profound technological innovation. James Watt's improvements to the steam engine, Richard Arkwright's spinning frame, Eli Whitney's cotton gin, and countless other inventions revolutionized the production of textiles, metal goods, and machinery. Scientific principles, refined during the Enlightenment, were applied practically, demonstrating the power of knowledge to transform everyday life. Engineers, inventors, and entrepreneurs experimented, collaborated, and adapted, creating systems of production that would endure and expand for generations. The Industrial Revolution also reshaped social structures. A new working class emerged, laboring in factories and urban centers, while industrialists and merchants amassed unprecedented wealth. Education and literacy became increasingly important as societies required skilled labor, technical knowledge, and administrative expertise. Social reform movements began to advocate for better working conditions, child labor laws, and public health measures. Humanity was learning to navigate the complexities of rapid change, balancing technological progress with ethical, social, and environmental concerns. Science and industry intertwined closely during this period. Chemistry, physics, and engineering provided the tools to improve manufacturing, transportation, and energy production. Agricultural methods were refined with mechanization, crop rotation, and selective breeding, increasing yields to feed growing urban populations. Medicine advanced with understanding of hygiene, vaccines, and anatomy, extending life expectancy and improving public health. These developments were not isolated, they reinforced one another, creating feedback loops of progress that transformed society from the ground up. The global impact of industrialization was profound. European nations, now capable of producing goods on a massive scale, expanded trade and colonization, influencing economies, cultures, and political structures across Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Raw materials flowed from colonies to industrial centers, while manufactured goods were exported worldwide. This interconnected global economy laid the foundation for modern globalization, demonstrating both the potential and the challenges of technological and economic expansion. Culturally, the Industrial Revolution inspired new forms of expression. Literature, painting, and music reflected both the marvel and the disquiet of industrial society. Writers like Charles Dickens depicted the human consequences of urbanization, labor, and social inequality, while artists captured the scale, energy, and atmosphere of industrial cities. Intellectual movements, such as socialism and liberalism, emerged in response to new economic realities, advocating for justice, equality, and human rights within rapidly changing societies. The Industrial Revolution is also a story of human ingenuity and resilience. Cities grew, populations expanded, and technologies multiplied. People adapted to new patterns of life, inventing not only machines, but systems of governance, education, and commerce to manage these changes. Innovation became a defining trait of human civilization, demonstrating that curiosity, creativity, and perseverance can transform the very fabric of daily existence. By the 19th century, humanity had entered a new age. The pace of life, work, and thought accelerated. Urban centers were alive with commerce. Factories hummed with machinery. Railways and steamships connected continents, and knowledge flowed more freely than ever before. The Industrial Revolution reshaped the physical, social, and intellectual landscapes, setting the stage for modern science, technology, and global society. As smoke rose from factory chimneys, trains rattled across newly laid tracks, and rivers carried goods to distant markets, humanity was learning to wield the power of invention responsibly and creatively. The Industrial Revolution reminds us that civilization evolves not only through culture and governance, but also through the practical application of knowledge, the harnessing of energy, and the collective will to build, innovate, and imagine a better, interconnected world. In reflecting on this era, one sees a pattern repeating across human history. Curiosity, ingenuity, and collaboration drive transformation. From villages along rivers to global industrial networks, humanity continually expands its reach, reshapes its environment, and redefines what is possible. The Industrial Revolution is a testament to this enduring capacity, a vivid chapter in the long, hypnotic story of human civilization. The modern era, science, politics, and globalization. As the Industrial Revolution reshaped the physical and social landscapes of humanity, the modern era emerged, spanning roughly from the late 19th century to the present. This period is characterized by rapid technological progress, profound political change, cultural transformation, and the unprecedented interconnection of human societies. Science, politics, and globalization converge, creating a world more interconnected and dynamic than any before. Science in the modern era advanced with extraordinary speed. Electricity, once a mysterious phenomenon, became a harnessed source of power, illuminating homes, powering factories, and driving inventions that would redefine daily life. Thomas Edison's light bulb, Nikola Tesla's alternating current systems, and Michael Faraday's experiments with electromagnetism laid the foundations for a new technological landscape. The telephone and telegraph transformed communication, shrinking distances and enabling instant contact across continents. Humanity was learning to manipulate the invisible forces of nature, bending them to human purpose with precision, ingenuity, and imagination. Medicine and biology experienced revolutionary change. Germ theory, pioneered by scientists such as Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch, revealed that invisible microorganisms caused disease, transforming public health, hygiene, and medical practice. Vaccines and antibiotics saved millions of lives, extending life expectancy and improving the quality of life for countless individuals. The understanding of heredity, advanced by Gregor Mendel, and later the discovery of DNA, opened new frontiers in genetics, medicine, and agriculture. Humans were no longer passive observers of biology. They could analyze, intervene, and shape it, exploring the very mechanisms of life itself. Physics and chemistry transformed our understanding of matter, energy, and the universe. Albert Einstein's theories of relativity challenged classical notions of space and time, while Marie Curie's pioneering work on radioactivity illuminated hidden forces within atoms. Quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, and advances in materials science provided the theoretical and practical foundations for modern technology. From electronics to aerospace, humanity had entered an era in which abstract thought, rigorous experimentation, and practical innovation combined to expand the boundaries of possibility. Meanwhile, politics and society underwent profound upheavals. Revolutions, wars, and social movements reshaped nations and ideologies. The 19th and 20th centuries witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the spread of democracy, and the struggle for equality and human rights. Movements for abolition, women's suffrage, labor rights, and civil liberties transformed social structures, challenging entrenched hierarchies, and creating new opportunities for participation and expression. International organizations and treaties began to foster diplomacy and cooperation, reflecting the growing awareness that global challenges require collective solutions. The 20th century brought both unprecedented destruction and extraordinary progress. Two world wars tested humanity's capacity for resilience, innovation, and moral reflection. They spurred technological development, from aviation and radio to nuclear energy, while simultaneously demonstrating the devastating consequences of unchecked power and conflict. The post-war period saw the establishment of institutions such as the United Nations, designed to promote peace, human rights, and international collaboration. Humanity learned that scientific and technological advances carry both promise and responsibility, shaping the trajectory of civilizations across the globe. Globalization accelerated in this era, knitting together economies, cultures, and ideas on a scale never seen before. Railways, steamships, automobiles, and airplanes facilitated the movement of goods and people. Telecommunications, radio, television, and eventually the internet connected minds and markets worldwide. Trade expanded across oceans and continents, creating complex networks of production and exchange. Cultural, scientific, and philosophical ideas spread rapidly, inspiring creativity, adaptation, and dialogue across diverse societies. Humanity was increasingly aware that it lives not in isolated pockets, but within a shared, interconnected world. Education, science, and culture became increasingly universal. Universities, research institutions, and libraries spread knowledge and fostered innovation. Literature, film, music, and the arts reflected both local traditions and global influences, offering windows into human experience across continents. Museums, journals, and digital platforms allowed humanity to preserve, transmit, and reinterpret knowledge, ensuring that the intellectual and artistic achievements of past civilizations informed present and future generations. Technological advancement continued to redefine daily life. Automobiles, airplanes, electricity, and later computers transformed transportation, communication, and work. Modern medicine, agriculture, and engineering improved living standards, extended lifespans, and reshaped societies. Innovations in energy production, information technology, and artificial intelligence have expanded human capability while raising ethical, social, and environmental questions. Humanity continues to navigate the delicate balance between progress, responsibility, and sustainability. Political thought evolved alongside technological and social change. Democracy, human rights, and social welfare became central principles in many nations, while debates over governance, justice, and equality remain ongoing. Global conflicts and cooperation demonstrate the interdependence of nations, illustrating that no society exists in isolation. International treaties, organizations, and forums attempt to address global challenges such as climate change, health crises, and economic inequality, reflecting humanity's growing awareness, shared destiny. The modern era is also defined by its cultural and intellectual diversity. Literature, philosophy, visual arts, and music reflect an array of perspectives, blending tradition with innovation. Scientific inquiry, critical thought, and artistic expression reinforce one another, creating a vibrant tapestry of human creativity. Societies experiment with new forms of governance, education, and social organization, continually redefining what it means to live, work, and flourish in an interconnected world. In reflecting on the modern era, one sees a continuity of human ambition, curiosity, and creativity stretching back through millennia. The Industrial Revolution, Scientific Revolution, and Enlightenment laid the groundwork for a world in which knowledge, technology, and culture are shared across borders. Humanity now faces both extraordinary opportunities and profound challenges, with the capacity to shape not only individual lives, but the trajectory of the planet itself. As cities hum with electricity, computers calculate and communicate across networks, and humans explore both the depths of the ocean and the expanse of space. Civilization continues to evolve. Science, politics, and globalization remind us that progress is the product of inquiry, collaboration, and imagination. The modern era is a testament to humanity's ability to learn from the past, innovate in the present, and envision futures that were once beyond imagination. Through observation, experimentation, reflection, and collaboration, humans continue to shape their world. The modern era is not an endpoint, but a continuation, a new chapter in the hypnotic, intricate, and endlessly unfolding story of human civilization. Humanity's journey, from the earliest villages along rivers to the interconnected global society of today, reflects a persistent drive to understand, to create, to connect, and to leave a legacy for the generations yet to come. Contemporary civilization, technology, society, and the future. As the 20th century gave way to the 21st, humanity entered an era defined by unprecedented technological advancement, cultural interconnection, and rapid societal transformation. Contemporary civilization reflects the culmination of millennia of human effort, from the first villages and cities to empires, revolutions, and industrial societies. Today, the world is linked in ways unimaginable to previous generations, with information, innovation, and ideas moving across borders in real time. Technology has become the defining force of contemporary life. Computers, the internet, and digital networks have transformed communication, commerce, and creativity. Information flows instantly, connecting billions of minds across continents. Social media, collaborative platforms, and virtual spaces have reshaped social interaction, education, and culture, creating communities that exist simultaneously in physical and digital realms. Humanity has learned not only to harness energy and matter, as in the Industrial Revolution, but to harness knowledge, networks, and collective intelligence on a global scale. Advances in medicine, biology, and neuroscience have dramatically improved quality of life. Vaccines, medical imaging, genomics, and personalized medicine allow for unprecedented understanding and treatment of disease. Humans now probe the intricacies of life at cellular and molecular levels, exploring genetic codes, stem cells, and regenerative therapies. Life expectancy has increased while infant mortality has decreased, transforming the demographics, social structures, and expectations of societies worldwide. Ethical and philosophical considerations accompany these advances as humanity reflects on the responsibilities inherent in controlling life itself. Energy and environmental awareness have become central challenges. Fossil fuels, which powered the Industrial Revolution, have enabled global prosperity, but also contributed to climate change. Renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and ecological engineering represent humanity's effort to balance technological progress with environmental stewardship. Scientists, engineers, and policymakers collaborate to envision futures in which civilization thrives while preserving the planet's ecosystems, understanding that human survival is intertwined with the health of the Earth. Economically, globalization has accelerated. Trade, investment, and finance operate on a planetary scale. Goods, services, and capital move seamlessly across borders, creating complex networks of interdependence. Multinational corporations, digital markets, and global supply chains link cities and continents in ways that amplify both opportunity and vulnerability. Individuals, communities, and nations are increasingly aware that their choices resonate far beyond their immediate surroundings, fostering both collaboration and responsibility. Culture, arts, and philosophy continue to evolve dynamically. Contemporary literature, cinema, music, and digital art reflect both local identities and global influences, blending tradition with innovation. Philosophical inquiry explores ethics in artificial intelligence, the meaning of consciousness, and the implications of interconnectivity. Education has expanded with online platforms, virtual classrooms, and open access knowledge democratizing learning. Humanity now has the capacity to share, preserve, and build upon centuries of collective wisdom more efficiently than ever before. Politics and society in the contemporary world are complex and interconnected. Democracies, authoritarian states, and hybrid systems coexist, with nations negotiating governance, human rights, and international collaboration in real time. Social movements advocate for equality, justice, and inclusion, drawing upon historical knowledge and modern technology to mobilize, educate, and create change. Global challenges, from pandemics to climate change, require coordinated responses, emphasizing both the power and responsibility of interconnected societies. Exploration, a defining human impulse, continues unabated. Space agencies, private companies, and international collaborations push the boundaries of human presence beyond Earth. Satellites monitor planetary systems, space telescopes observe distant galaxies, and missions to the moon, Mars, and beyond expand our understanding of the universe. Oceans, too, are explored with new technologies, revealing depths and ecosystems previously hidden. Humanity's curiosity and desire to understand both the microcosm and the macrocosm remain as compelling today as in the earliest days of civilization. Artificial intelligence, robotics, and quantum technologies exemplify the transformative potential of contemporary innovation. Machines learn, adapt, and assist in tasks from logistics to medicine. Computational power enables simulation, modeling, and problem solving on unprecedented scales. Humans and machines interact in ways that redefine work, creativity, and knowledge production, challenging traditional notions of labor, intelligence, and capability. Ethical frameworks and societal reflection guide these developments, emphasizing the importance of balancing innovation with humanity's long-term welfare. Social and cultural interconnectedness reaches a peak in the digital age. Individuals from diverse cultures can communicate instantaneously, collaborate on global projects, and share creative works across continents. Languages, traditions, and perspectives intermingle, creating hybrid forms of expression and understanding. Simultaneously, the preservation of cultural heritage, languages, and local knowledge remains a priority, acknowledging that global progress is enriched by diversity and history. Contemporary civilization reflects the culmination of countless generations' curiosity, labor, and creativity. It embodies lessons from ancient cities, classical empires, medieval networks, Renaissance inquiry, industrial ingenuity, and modern scientific exploration. Humanity now has the unprecedented capacity to shape its future intentionally, to expand knowledge, to connect societies, and to harness both natural and technological resources. Yet the contemporary era also emphasizes responsibility. Humanity faces challenges that require global cooperation, environmental sustainability, ethical technology, equitable access to knowledge and resources, and the cultivation of peace and understanding across cultural and national boundaries. Civilization's advancement is measured not only by innovation, but by its ability to ensure that growth, prosperity, and knowledge serve the well-being of all inhabitants of the planet. As skyscrapers rise, data flows through invisible networks, satellites orbit the Earth, and laboratories probe the building blocks of life. Humans continue their hypnotic journey of discovery, creation, and reflection. Civilization is both ancient and immediate, a continuum of thought, invention, and adaptation that links every person to the achievements, struggles, and aspirations of countless generations before. The modern world is a living testament to humanity's capacity for imagination, ingenuity, and reflection. It reminds us that the story of civilization is not static. It is ever evolving, shaped by curiosity, collaboration, and the delicate balance between progress and responsibility. Contemporary life is simultaneously the product of millennia of human endeavor and the beginning of new possibilities, a bridge connecting the rich past of human history to an unfolding, limitless future. Conclusion and reflection. humanity's journey and legacy as we reach the final chapter of this hypnotic journey through the entire history of human civilization, it is worth pausing to reflect on the long, intricate, and mesmerizing path humanity has traveled, from the earliest hunter-gatherers tracing patterns in the soil to the bustling metropolises and interconnected networks of the contemporary world. Every step, every thought, and every innovation has contributed to the tapestry we inhabit today. Our journey begins with the gentle stirrings of life along fertile river valleys, where humans first learned to cultivate the land, tend animals, and build communities. Small villages gave rise to complex cities, and rudimentary tools evolved into intricate technologies. Societies organized themselves into systems of governance, belief, and culture, each adaptation a reflection of human ingenuity and the desire to understand the world. From Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to early China, civilizations flourished along rivers, deserts, and plains, creating art, writing, and institutions that would endure for millennia. Classical civilizations built upon these foundations, exploring philosophy, law, mathematics, and the cosmos. Greece and Rome, India and China, Persia and the Middle East, each contributed insights that shaped human thought, governance, and spirituality. Cities became centers of commerce, learning, and creativity, while ideas traveled along trade routes, enriching distant societies. Humans began to see themselves not only as participants in their immediate surroundings, but as thinkers capable of abstract reflection, invention, and moral consideration. The medieval era wove these achievements into new patterns. Monasteries, universities, and empires preserved knowledge, nurtured intellectual and artistic expression, and guided communities through periods of turbulence and transformation. Trade networks expanded across continents, and the flowering of culture in Asia, Europe, and the Islamic world demonstrated humanity's capacity for resilience, innovation, and interconnectedness. Spirituality, philosophy, and governance intertwined, guiding individuals and societies alike in navigating both earthly challenges and the mysteries of existence. The Renaissance and the Age of Exploration rekindled human curiosity and creativity on a global scale. Art, science, and philosophy flourished as humans examined themselves, their world, and the cosmos with renewed vigor. Voyages across oceans revealed continents, peoples, and ecosystems previously unknown, creating the beginnings of a global consciousness. Knowledge circulated more freely than ever before, and humans began to grasp the immense potential of observation, experimentation, and imagination. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment expanded this vision further, emphasizing reason, evidence, and ethical reflection. Humans learned to measure, analyze, and comprehend natural phenomena with precision. Laws of motion, principles of chemistry, and discoveries in biology illuminated the universe and our place within it. Political philosophy and social thought explored justice, governance, and human rights, laying the foundation for societies guided not only by tradition but by reasoned principles. The Industrial Revolution transformed the material world, harnessing energy, machinery, and human labor on a vast scale. Cities grew, factories hummed, and transportation networks connected regions and continents. Humanity learned to organize, innovate, and apply knowledge practically, creating prosperity while confronting the social, ethical, and environmental challenges that arise from rapid transformation. This era was a reminder that civilization is as much about adaptation as it is about invention, that progress requires both vision and responsibility. The modern era brought unprecedented interconnection, advances in science, medicine, technology, and communication reshaped daily life and expanded human capability. Globalization, digital networks, and space exploration created new dimensions of experience, linking societies and individuals in ways previous generations could scarcely imagine. Humanity gained the power to manipulate the natural world, cure disease, travel across oceans and into space, and communicate instantly with distant peers. With this power comes the responsibility to balance innovation with ethics, sustainability, and collective welfare. Contemporary civilization reflects the culmination of millennia of human curiosity, labor, and creativity. It embodies the lessons of ancient river valleys, classical empires, medieval networks, industrial cities, and modern nations. It shows that the arc of human history is shaped by observation, imagination, collaboration, and reflection. Every invention, artwork, law, and idea is part of a continuum, a hypnotic rhythm of striving, learning, and creating. As we contemplate this vast journey, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe and serenity. Humans have woven intricate patterns of knowledge, belief, and creativity across the fabric of time. We have built, explored, reflected, and connected in countless ways, leaving legacies both tangible and abstract. Each generation contributes threads to this ongoing tapestry, shaping the possibilities of the future, even as it inherits the wisdom of the past. Now, with a smile on your face, you will have a good understanding of the entire history of human civilizations, from ancient beginnings along rivers, through classical empires, medieval networks, Renaissance exploration, scientific and industrial revolutions, to the contemporary, interconnected world we inhabit today. Civilization is a living, breathing story, one that continues to evolve as humanity learns, creates, and dreams. Goodbye, dear friend. See you next time.